sing a happy song together, and we'll all be a happy family.
Well, hi and welcome back to those of you that are following this repair on the Elizabethan 200 reel-to-reel tape recorder. There's been quite an adventure with this because I thought what I'll do is just assemble it again, try and get the mechanical side of it running properly, and when I started to wind up the power on it, I found that it motorboated badly and I couldn't understand why. So I got all the diagrams out and started tracing things through, and as already mentioned, this diagram doesn't match what I've got. So these two capacitors are not there and the resistors going with them. This cathode is taken straight to ground on those two. Now what I thought was, right, let's look at all these components around here. I took this valve out and the motorboating still happens, so I knew that the fault was associated with the triode-pentode pair there. Now, after trying to trace things through, checking all these resistors, changing out any capacitors just in case they might cause a problem, especially these, I removed C6 at one point, so there's nothing going in here, and the motorboating stopped. My first thoughts were, well, maybe it didn't like having these two, this one being a bigger one, but this one also being a smaller one, so I've got a 47 and a 22 instead of two 32s there. I tacked temporarily a 47 across there as well to see if that would get rid of the problem, and it didn't. And then I thought, well, maybe it's resistors. That resistor was high. I've managed to improvise one to put in there by putting a whole lot of small ones in parallel, because I don't have a wire wound resistor of 4 watts to go in there. But having done that, tried again, still the same. Checked that resistor there. It was a bit high, but okay, within sort of 10% anyway. This one was okay, again a little bit high. So what was causing it? Well, it would, normally what happens if it motorboats like that is the voltage gets pulled down, and that gets fed back in through here, and it just feeds back on itself, and it just keeps oscillating. So I thought, yeah, this voltage here isn't being stable enough. Now, I mentioned earlier on in one of the earlier episodes that I could only find these 3 capacitors. These 2 and this one were missing. Now, really, I was quite slow on the uptake, but looking at the actual board at this end, there was 2 pads there which had been soldered on the circuit board in the past. But as this unit worked when I plugged it in, and it seemed to play okay before I started working on it at all, I assumed that it was working properly as it was. It's always wise to think back that even if the thing works, it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't quite serious issues. And what I realised in the end was that C1 should be there, and that's what belonged there. So that was what was meant to hold this point stable. So I didn't have a 16, it's supposed to be a 16, so I put a 22 in there, but of course that's going to be fine. As soon as I did that, I got rid of the motorboating problem. So put the other valve back in, and so I've got a lot of new components in there now, which I probably didn't really need to change, but with capacitors it's a good idea anyway. Safeguard it for the future. So then I've connected up to my voltage, my variable voltage supply. So I wind it up on a variac. I did it initially with a dim bulb, and then I've taken the dim bulb out, so it's just straight on a variac. I've got my multimeter there, which I hope is visible, and we can then, as I say, there's a residual 11 volts sitting there at the moment. Monitoring the HT at pin 6. Now that's the anode of the pentode output, and therefore, looking at the valve information, which is on the other sheet, it should ideally be 250. Now it doesn't have to be exactly 250, it can be 260 or even 270. I think it would still be okay. It's within the operating range of it, but the ideal is 250. So when I'm at 240 volts going in, I should get around 250 on the HT. And I'm not sure about whether I want to try and get it exact. I think it's probably going to be good enough. So I switch it on down there. It's switched on up here. As I wind the variac up, I should see the voltage come up. And it is, there we go. So I'll put in, let's put in the American voltage to start with. 117 volts going in. The HT is up. I mean, what happens is, as it warms up, the HT will go very high briefly and then drop back down when it's plugged in, switched on normally. But as I'm bringing it up slowly, you won't see that so much. But it will settle down to a reasonable voltage, and I'll wind it up a bit more. So we now got 160 volts, and you can see it's nearly 250 now, but it's dropping back. And as it warms up, and as both the valves and the indicator, level indicator valve warm up, it will drop back down, and we're going right back down under 200. There we go. Already getting a slight buzz from the speaker. It's going to pick up the lights and everything because it's very sensitive. Tape recorders are very, very sensitive amplifiers. So yes, it's dropping back down quite nicely. We wind it up to 200 volts, and we're still below the 250, and it's still dropping. Alright, we go to the European voltage, 220. So we've got 220 going in, and we're up around just under the 250 on there. And I think we're going to find that the volume control that I repaired works, but it's a bit scratchy. So I may end up putting a new one in there anyway. But it was an interesting experiment to try and repair it. Right, let's drop back down a little. Go to compromise voltage of 230. And so we're slightly over 250 there, but it's still warming up a bit. So if we end up around 260-ish, that would be fine. It may be a little over that, but yeah, I think that's well within the tolerance for the valve. So we'll hit the 240, that's it. We've got 240 going in. I'm going to say it's 268 at the moment. I don't think we'll go up from that. No, it's dropping down slowly. And I think all the signs are that it's going to be fine now. I say it's quite a bit of hum on the speaker, but how much is due to the lights? Well, that's not affecting it too much. So yeah, I think personally I'll probably say I'd leave it at that. I mean, I could increase the resistor size, and I've got this this bodged resistor arrangement in there at the moment of a whole lot of small ones in parallel. It should be a single wire wound resistor in there. I needed to get the wattage up to 4 watts, so I ended up with a bunch of those to try it out. Why the capacitor was missing, I don't know. I reckon I might have borrowed it myself for something else and then forgotten. But there we go. It certainly seems to be viable now. So having got that part working, I can then start turning my mind back again to the mechanical side of it and trying to get it to run a tape through okay. Okay, so what have we done? Well, the first thing is I had the motor disconnected because the whole thing was upside down and the motor won't run in that position. It's just not designed to. So to save any problems with that, I disconnected the motor, but now it's been reconnected. I've put a tape on it, as you can see, and I've set my variac to 220 volts, which will give me exactly the right HT. Then really all that remains now is to test it. So if we push this switch down, that switches it on. Well, it does have if I turned it on down the bottom here. Okay, let's try again. There we go. The motor starts running straight away and the valve should start warming up. And we can already see the level indicator tube has warmed up. So that we should see move when I'm actually playing a tape. So we have the tape on, that's in the right position. We're in play mode. And the volume is somewhere around, right at the bottom there. But if I turn it up, yeah, it brings a bit of noise up with it, but that may not be the case once it's assembled properly. Now let's just give it a try. Fast forward first, which didn't work before. Yep, that's fine. Rewind. That's fine. I'll be a bit careful of the tape because the cover is missing at the moment. So if I push it forward, that will be play mode. Turn the volume up. Oh, that was loud. Okay, it's bound to give me copyright issues, isn't it? Now then, if I move the tone, it cuts down the treble, it increases. It's very subtle, the tone control, but it is working. You can see when I turn it up, the level on there is flickering up. So yeah, it's playing. Fast forward, rewind. I'm not going to try recording or anything yet. This is just a first try to make sure it does actually play. Volume control that I fixed, it's a tiny bit noisy occasionally, but it's working. So I think what I'll do is I'll leave that. It's got very good volume output. Yeah, tone is working, but it's very subtle. It certainly brings up the treble. If I had good ears, it would probably be more noticeable. Okay, so let's put that to stop and let's turn that off. And that's my first try, and it does now seem to be playing. The other one I didn't check actually. I think I'll turn it on again because what I didn't check was does the counter work? So let's set it to 0. I'm sure it does because it's just a simple mechanical thing. So put that on to play. Yeah, there we go. decanters rolling round nicely. Yep, we'll go for that. We'll settle with that. Okay, so thanks for watching, and hopefully the next one will be this back in its case and working. We'll try recording and playing back something and see if we've got any issues. Also see whether it does actually sound better with its proper speaker and it's all put together properly. But yeah, that's been quite a journey to get it this far. So hopefully catch you in the next one. Bye for now.
Sing a happy song together, fill the air with harmony. Sing a happy song together, that's the song to choose. For pushing away the blues, keep the heartstrings running, there's a good time coming, it will keep on